Hello and Merry Christmas! So as it is the holiday season, I have been revisiting all of my favorite Christmas classics. A Christmas Carol, The Nutcracker, Twas, The Night Before Christmas, and they all mention plums in some shape or form. Like whether it's a plum pudding or a sugar plum, just plums. I was like, what's up with that? But it made me want plums. I had plums on the brain, so I decided to see if I could get some of that plum stuff and pair it with some more plum stuff. In this case, we're going to be pairing it with a Plum Wine from Honeywood Winery, and I have had an opened wine from them on this channel before, in particular their elderberry wine and their cherry wine. So now we're going to open up another fruit wine today. But first, let's talk a little bit about plums. Quick disclaimer, if you are British, then I'm going to be mentioning some things about like plum foods that you're obviously already going to know. So I'm going to go ahead and you can click. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description to where you can go ahead and skip ahead to the good part because y'all already know this. So, because I am an American, I had no clue what a sugar plum was. Like, the sugar plum fairies, I thought, oh, that's a cute name, but I had no idea what it meant. Visions of sugar plums dance in their heads, no idea what that was. I was, picturing just like a plum dipped in sugar, which isn't exactly it, but sugar plums will get there. And as for plum pudding, I pictured like this purple wobbly custard thing, and that was not it at all. It was very different. So, yeah, I decided to get my hands on one of those plum things. As for sugar plums, I was close, and plum pudding I was nowhere near getting, and I also realized that after reading several recipes, it required an inordinate amount of preparation, and I just did not have that kind of time. So I was like, okay, we're gonna do this next year. And for those of you who don't know, a plum pudding is basically just like this steamed sort of mix of breadcrumbs and brandy and dried fruits and spices, yada yada yada. It's very cute, and sometimes when people serve it, they'll like pour brandy on top and like light it on fire. It's really cool, and I want to do it, but I just didn't have time. I decided to go ahead and make sugar plums, and I tried to make them all cute. Look at that! That's adorable! So sugar plum is basically, nowadays, the understanding of a sugar plum is it is just a kind of blend of nuts and dried fruits, and some sugar and some spice and everything nice, and rolled with sugar on the outside. So that is what I made. I used Alton Brown's recipe, but I had to modify it a little bit. I kept the ratios the same, but the fruits I had to switch up because I didn't have enough of all of them. So I used a combo of dried cherries, dried figs, dried plums or prunes, and yes, dried dates. Yeah, I think that's all I used. So a little different, but still seemed very good. But before we go ahead and pair the sugar plums with the plum wine and see if it works, let's talk about plums, the fruit. So I could not do the hat. I needed to put it there. It was built for a head smaller than mine. So let's talk about plums. Plums, or Prunus, subgenus Prunus, have been around since about as long or longer than cultivated grapes, wine grapes. There has been evidence of plums, cultivated plums, alongside cultivated grapes and olives and figs from the Neolithic era. I will link it below. It's very cool stuff. So obviously they have been part of the ancient diet, and they're here now. Obviously, we still all enjoy them. They are a very fascinating fruit in the sense that they vary wildly from region to region. However, the one thing they all have in common is that it is a juicy fruit with a hard pit in the center and a wax bloom on the outside. So the wax bloom is actually a natural hydrophobic layer, and it is not put there by the supplier, which I thought was very interesting and kind of weird to think that a fruit could produce its own wax, but what do I know? Only what I've learned. So plums are very popular all over the world to use in brandy, in wine, in desserts, dried or pickled or salted, or even eaten fresh, which some of them you can, some of them you can't. It's a very versatile fruit, and I thought it would be a very prudent one. Prudent? Okay. I thought it'd be a prudent one to visit around the holiday season. So, like I mentioned, I made sugar plums, and we have a plum wine from Honeywood Winery in Oregon. And not to be confused with Japanese plum wine, that is a very different sort of beverage. This is wine made from the plums. Japanese plum wine is basically a spirit with plums infused in it, which is very delicious, but not what this is. Enough talk. I think it is time to eat and be merry, so let's get this open and evaluate the wine and see how well it works with the sugar plums I have prepared. This should be fun. Honeywood Winery is honestly so cute. Like, everything, fruit wine, country wine, it just kind of evokes this homey feeling, which feels very holiday to me. So I think this is kind of perfect. And this one's got a screw top, but my hands are not very strong. Give me a minute. Are you serious right now? We did it. So, I don't know if you guys can see on the camera, probably not, but there is a bit of what looks to be either sugar or... And here is where I meant to say tartaric acid. The crystals at the bottom of a bottle of wine or attached to the cork are tartrate crystals. Tartaric acid is one of the 3 acids found in wine, and when you see tartrate crystals in your bottle or attached to your cork, that generally means that your wine was kept in a very cold condition for a long period of time. Crystallized at the bottom of the bottle, which kind of hints to me that this is going to be a very sweet wine, kind of like a lot of country wine, so let's go ahead and get a sample pour and give it a taste. You know, I need a little bit more. This is not enough to evaluate. Give me a minute. Hey, that's more like it. Where were we? Ah yes, evaluation. So because we're evaluating it the same way we evaluate any wine, because that's what I got, we're gonna start by looking at it. So the color of this is very interesting to me because I expected it to be more purple, more plummy in color. It is not. It definitely has more of an orange tinge to it. Which is to say, it's very beautiful, but it is not what I expected out of a plum wine. Usually their plum juices especially stain things very deep red, but alas, we have an orange. Clarity, pretty great, and in terms of that intensity, very, very light intensity. Next thing we do, we sniff. That is evaluating the nose. Oh, let's do it. Oh, she's sweet. This smells like sugar. Okay. Okay. So in terms of the nose, a very light intensity, not very strong. It does smell very sweet. It smells of plums, and oddly enough, it reminded me of Moscato. So that was something. It's a fruit wine. I didn't expect to glean much from it, and that is okay. It is not going to be as complex as wine from Vitis vinifera, but it will be interesting nonetheless. So now that we have looked at it and sniffed it, let's go ahead and sip it or evaluate the palate. So, cheers. Interesting. Okay. It was balanced. That was really awesome. Normally with country wines, and especially country wines made at home, they can be a little bit too much on the sweet side, but this one, they must have done something. They must have added a little bit of an extra like acid blend to it because it tasted very balanced, which is awesome. I do think that if you're gonna make a wine, you really want to make sure that it's got enough acidity to balance out any sweetness, which this definitely had. Felt very light on the tongue. It did taste like plums, and it tasted, again, a little bit like a very simple Moscato. Fascinating. In terms of tannin, really couldn't detect much, if any, and in terms of finish, it was a medium finish. Very pleasant. That fruitiness lasted on the tongue. The alcohol felt very light, and overall, very pleasant. As far as fruit wines go, Honeywood, you've done it again. This is really good. And this one, I'd have to say, is a bit more complex than the other two that we have tried in terms of fruit wine. So definitely give Plum Wine a try. Very surprised, very pleasantly surprised. In terms of what I would pair it with, well, you know what? I have sugar plums, so let's find out. All right. So I've got one of these and this, so let's take a bite. That's really good. This is awesome. Oh man. Okay. It's not bad. I will say that the sugar plum made this taste more tart. So if you appreciate that sort of combo, you want to eat something sweet and you want to taste something a little bit more tart, eating something sweet will make your sweet wine taste more tart. I said tart a lot. I need a new word. Verdict, delicious. I think that this has enough spice in it with that fennel and that anise, or anise, I don't know how people pronounce it, and I know I added another spice. It's in the recipe. But it definitely helped with the sort of fruitiness of this. This has got a complexity to it, and it's got that sugar. This is sweet enough to hold its own, and I think that they went well together quite nicely. So if you're looking for something to enjoy for Christmas that's perhaps not as sugary as perhaps a gingerbread cookie or the inordinate amounts of cake that we could consume, I recommend making some sugar plums. They are easy, they're delicious, and you can pair it with a plum wine. I imagine this would also go very well with things like glühwein or mulled wine, so give that a try too. Anywho, amazing plum wine. Who'd have thunk? I'm gonna hang on. Brits have such awesome dessert recipes. This is like so much fun. Thank you for joining me for this special Christmas episode. Like I said before, I pick one holiday a year at this point, and that is pretty much all that my brain can handle, because time just goes so fast. It really goes too fast. The older I get, the faster time gets, and I don't like it. But anywho, Merry Christmas, everyone! I really hope that you guys are all enjoying a holiday, whether you celebrate or not. I hope you're at least getting a break and maybe getting to enjoy some time with family. And it's great to be here. I'm very thankful for you guys, and I'm very thankful to get the opportunity to share some really fun things about wine with you. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera so I can finish eating this and you don't have to watch me because that'd be weird. Anywho, I will see you guys again in the new year. Bye-bye!